Did you know that one of the most important keys to your spiritual liberation is already in your hands, but you may not yet be aware? Hello and welcome back to our space. Today, we examine one of the haziest areas of understanding for most spiritual seekers, one that seems to bring more confusion with every attempt at unraveling it. Despite its profound and challenging nature, its mastery is also one of the most liberating journeys of self-discovery. I'm talking about shadow work. What is shadow work? What is the core meaning? Just from simple interpretation, the obviously suggested meaning of the term is work that is done in places where the sun or any form of light does not reach, right? If this is what you understand it to be, I assure you that you're on the right path. Coined by a man named Carl Jung, the term shadow in human psychology represents the hidden, disowned, or rejected parts of your personality. It's everything you've been taught, by family, society, religion, or traumatic experiences to be unacceptable, shameful, weak, dangerous, or simply not the ideal you. Or better put, not the you that you should be proud of identifying with. Everyone says, and you eventually unwittingly agree, that this version of you should be locked up in your mental psychological basement, if one may put it that way. Hence the term shadow. You don't consciously choose to repress these aspects of yourself, it just happens automatically, as a kind of survival mechanism while growing up, to gain love, acceptance, and safety. So shadow work is really the courageous process of reclaiming, integrating, and transforming these buried or locked up parts of you. It's honestly necessary for any degree of lasting progress in any sphere of life because, well, they are still you, and you can never be your full self if parts of you are tucked away in hidden places you may not be consciously aware of. Please let that sink in for a moment, because like it or not, they are still you. Since you really can't amputate them, so to speak, you must accept them, understand them, and reintegrate them into your lucid awareness. Let us attempt an analogy that may help us have an even more readily graspable understanding. I hope it helps. So, let us imagine, for example, a lovely lady is all dressed up to go out for a dance. As she enters the car, part of the hem of her white dress gets caught in the door and is flapping out in the wind. It happens a lot when ladies wear flowing gowns and go out for a drive. While on her way to the dance, mud and dirt spill on this part of her lovely white gown. She arrives at the dance, alights, and is ushered to the door of the ballroom by a handsome valet, who notices the mud stain on her gown. They both observe rather sadly that indeed the hem of her beautiful white gown is stained, even though the rest is still immaculate and lovely to the eye. The valet suggests she return and change to a different gown or take a brief detour and wash this stain off. She checks the time, feels it will delay her progress, and decides to avoid the stress, hide the stain as best as she can, and proceed into the ballroom. She now accepts this blemish as part of her dressing, but she also has to bury it under another form of apparel or overlay so she can navigate the social necessity of the evening. And, she does that cover-up routine remarkably well for almost the entire evening. All is well until the same valet walks up and whispers to her that, because of her elegance, she has been nominated for a prize during a ceremony at the end of the ball which is in 1 hour, a ceremony that will require her to stand up on a stage. Standing on this stage requires that she adorn no other overlay or cover apparel than the white gown in its full immaculate glory. She is in a quandary because this stage, this prize, this moment in the limelight is the very reason she came to the ball. Will she undertake the work of finding a means to remove this stain within the next hour, or will she think that is too much of a bother, politely refuse to mount the stage and receive the prize, and accept to remain as one of the many ordinary attendees and invitees making merry on the floor? You and I are the woman. The valet is our higher self, which observes the blemishes, suggests immediate remediation, but does not force it. It is our silent companion, one that reminds us of the next stages of our spiritual or life journey. In this case, symbolized by the call to mount the rostrum and receive the prize. The gown is our psychic self, soul plus mind, and the blemish on the gown is our shadow self, the unresolved aspect of us that holds us back from mounting the rostrum of life to receive our due prizes. It emerges just at the point of our greatest advancement to destroy all that we have worked for. It may be an unresolved trauma, unresolved anger, or unresolved shame. The list is endless. This story may not be fantastic in its excitement, but I believe it clearly highlights the trade-off of not doing shadow work in our spiritual journey. Until we clean off that blemish, and it matters little if we caused it or not, for it is not a blame game, we can't mount that stage. No true spiritual progress can be made from our current level, whatever that may be. So, I have gone through this lengthy explanation just to make it clear, without much jargon, how this shadow self was created, and why we really must treat it as part of our larger gown, rid it of stains, and then put it back to use with the rest of the gown. This is honestly the only time we can wear that gown without being self-conscious and restricted by the knowledge of this stain we must always cover, in order to be accepted into the ballroom of life. I must reiterate that these stains are mostly not self-inflicted, but are picked up in the course of our growth. The strongest sources being in our formative years, when parental or social acceptance was our main safety net. There are 5 underlying struggles that are involved in any attempt we make to undertake shadow work, and we must be aware of them. For while they are subtle and largely unsensed, they have deep roots and often defy any attempts to get rid of them. Again, being aware of this is our first weapon. With awareness, we will refuse to be thrown off by any attempts, tricks, or subterfuges put up by the shadow self, to resist being unmasked and healed. The first struggle is that of being in a state of self-denial and blindness. A greater proportion of the time, especially in individuals who lack this awareness, we genuinely don't see these repressed parts in ourselves. What happens is, because of the denial, we often see ourselves in others faster than we see ourselves in ourselves, and what then happens is that we rush to point out these flaws in them, when actually, we are the ones who have them. This is called projection, and is one of the strongest telltale signs of the struggles of a shadow self. The second struggle is with fear and shame, and it follows the first. When we catch a glimpse of what we have denied for so long, it is no longer business as usual. Confronting the shadow means facing what we deeply fear is true about us, and the intense shame associated with it. So, the third stage of the struggle is resistance. And, having been discovered and as a reaction to the intense fear and shame now facing it, the shadow self mounts a life and death resistance. This stage is, honestly, very powerful, and most seekers give up the work here. The untrained ego fiercely protects its self-image, simply because, well, shadow work feels threatening. No more, no less. The fourth struggle follows naturally from the third. As more and more light is shown into the shadow, pain of past wounds that the shadow self endured and fought to cover and move on resurfaces with life-size intensity and energy. Because shadows often form around traumatic experiences or deep hurts we couldn't process, and are not yet ready to process. This sudden intrusion intensifies the pain caused by past hurts. Following on from this is the fifth struggle. The challenge lies in its complexity and messiness. Let's face it, reconciliation and integration isn't neat. It involves confronting uncomfortable emotions and contradictions. With people and events you rather not have anything to do with anymore. Forgiveness is seen as death, even when you were wronged. The rehash of the messiness and sometimes confronting your past aggressor can be too much to bear. From 1 to 5, these are the 5 struggles or the barriers and obstacles every shadow worker will have to be ready to confront. Understand, love, heal, and remove to create a path for honest shadow work to commence. If unfettered access to the locked memories is not created, these struggles will continue to act as barriers that our shadow selves will hide behind to avoid open interrogation of their content, events, and subsequent resolution. Please note that these barriers are not the shadow selves, but the boundaries the shadow self has built around itself over the years to avoid and prevent intrusion. Most individuals are aware they have shadow selves to resolve and heal, but these barriers are the subtle tricks that frustrate any genuine attempts to undertake this work. Do you now understand why most people give up? Unfortunately, there is no shortcut around this vital soul healing activity. If there was, I would tell you, there simply isn't any. The only way around this storm is through it. But don't despair. We will progress gradually, and you are in the right place. In the concluding part of this two-part series, we will look at the nitty-gritty of shadow work, what it really entails, and the hidden wisdoms that are contained in the journey. Wisdoms that we will use to alchemize our darkness of despair into the light of transformation. As is our tradition on this channel, it will be no frills, no high-sounding complexities, just simple explanation and guidance. Subscribe to keep a date with us for that soul-liberating session. Also, invite your friend too by liking and sharing this video so the algorithm can push it as far as possible. Until we meet again, remain renewed. On all levels.